no man or woman reserves the right to go through life without exploring the capabilities of their body. Yes. This novel idea of like, if you do the work, you'll get there. And people want the results and they don't want the journey. They don't want that self-discovery that happens in these processes. So when you get fast results, you don't appreciate stuff. So Ozempic is doing it for you. Instagram is very prominent for, if you've got a nice body, you'll promote anything and they'll think that this is the magic way. You know, let's kind of pull the curtain back. What kind of gear are you on? You've got all these muscles. How much juice are you taking? Is a time and a place for everything. I always say the right thing at the right time. A lot of people do the right thing at the wrong time. Yes. Or in the wrong order. It's the SAID principle, right? Yeah. The specific adaptations to the imposed demands. Are you putting your body through the right type of stressors that are going to elicit the muscle growth? We have one method that everybody knows. This is lift the weights. Yeah. I'm not against it. I just think that the hyper focus on that versus, hey, why don't we look at these other aspects?
Absolutely.
You know, how can we work on this mobility factor? How can we work on these weird end ranges that you will always find yourself in?
Welcome to the Kaptainplantit Podcast. My name is Lance Kirsch, aka Kaptainplantit. I'm a former professional athlete. I once suffered from sickle cell trait, but I use 7 natural doctors to help me alleviate that suffrage. On this podcast, we focus on those 7 natural doctors to help you alleviate your suffrage as well with possible health issues you may have. For today's episode, I have a guest. We're going to be talking about exercise. His name is Cody Perez, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Cody, let him know about you.
All right. Thank you, Lance. Like he said, my name is Cody Perez. I personal trainer by trade, diving deep into more neurophysiology, a lot more about the science of how the body works, why it works the way it does, doing a lot of work with the athletes, certified strength and conditioning specialist, neurokinetic therapy, recovery work. So it's been a long journey. Been doing this for about 17 years. Really started getting into the nuance about 5 years ago. And, just here to kind of revolutionize the space. Kind of goes in hand with the name of the company that I founded, Revolution Performance. Mm-hmm. My whole goal is to disrupt what's been done, the status quo, and really start getting not only athletes to perform better, recover better, bounce back from injuries, but then how can I bring that to the everyday person? The guy who likes to play pickup basketball on the weekends and get told his knees are bad because he's old. And we know that's not the truth. So, just here to illuminate, chop it up, and let the people know what's up.
Damn, yes, listen, that's what we need. We need people that's going to question the status quo, question the age-old, I'm too old, my knees are hurting, and I can't move. It's like, nah, that's not necessarily the
definitely
truth.
Not the case.
We're really going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But first, before we get into that, let's talk about where you're from. Let's talk about how we met, right? Let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about your journey to the exercise science part of health.
Sure. Started out like a lot of high schoolers, got really into working out, played sports. I didn't go past the high school level, but I kept up the exercise. I kept up the weekend warrior spirit.
What sport you play?
I was a basketball player.
Okay.
By trade,
What position?
Yeah, I was a shooting guard.
Okay. So you were nice with it?
I'm decent.
Okay.
I don't want to talk too much and then get shown up at times, but I do like to play in competitions, a lot of rec leagues and challenge people. Mm-hmm. But so I kind of took this athletic lifestyle and my interest for that. I noticed that whatever it is I was doing with all my other jobs, that I always helped people. It was really a thing about how can I be a catalyst for somebody else to get improvement. So I found myself teaching a lot, coaching a lot, bringing people through things. And then I think my big trigger was around 2010, my mother had passed away from cancer. It was pancreatic cancer. It was probably about an 8-month cycle from the diagnosis to when she passed. And it opened up my eyes a lot to more than just physical fitness, more than just how big can I get my muscles or how low can I get my body fat percentage? It was to how can we live this healthy life that can sustain us? Because while I won't get into the science of a lot of the things that happened with her, but I have a feeling that she neglected the health, worked really hard, and create an environment where this stuff happened to her.
Yeah.
So that was phase one of like my catalyst into what I came into. Phase two, I'm a trainer at a gym up in Sunrise, and they had a lot of the Dolphins players would come in there, play basketball, and hang out. And Chris Clemens at the time, me and him became relatively close, would start asking me certain questions. And do I do this? And do I know about this? And then it really started getting into where I'm falling short if I would love to work with people at this kind of level. And so then I kind of decided at that point I was going to go back to school. I went and got my bachelor's in exercise physiology. Mm-hmm. And from there, really took off into teaching, coaching, and then more science, more the nuanced work.
So was that here in Miami?
That was all here in Miami. So, we'll go a little bit before that too, was I'm from your same hometown, right? Yeah. So
Fort Myers.
Back in Fort Myers.
239.
Yeah. So I was a Cypress Lake high school kid.
Okay. Panthers.
Go Panthers, right? So back in 2002, to age myself a little bit.
Okay.
Funny enough, here in Miami, maybe three years ago, give or take, I'm at the farmer's market in Coconut Grove. Mm-hmm. Come across your stall setup, and really interested in a lot of the natural medicine stuff and the things you're promoting. So we start chopping it up, and you tell me your name. Hey, I'm Lance Kearse, and I kind of look at you, and I'm like, did you grow up in Fort Myers? And then you gave me that little side look, and like, how do you know? It's like, I think I used to play ball with you at the rec center right out of Harlem Heights, right outside of Harlem Heights, and just started going from there. And then, this friendship really blossomed. It kind of came from, we went to the same, we were from the same hometown to we're kind of in the same sphere. Mm-hmm. We're both bucking the trends of modern medicine. We're both looking at the current establishment of how fitness is or how health is. And we're both like, this is all trash. This is all wrong. Why are we reactionary? Why are we not getting in front of stuff? Why are we so inclined to deal with the issue once something's broken or hurt? So fast forward to today, you've got your supplement line. It's everything that I believe in, from the nutritional aspect through the tenets of how you live. The 7 natural doctors, where I talk about this to everybody. And then I dive deep on the exercise portion and really try to do this, because now working with people in your sphere, like the pro athletes, seeing that, like, why are most of you guys breaking so easily? And I say easily as a relative term. You're definitely doing more than what I'm doing on the field, but how come these injuries keep happening? How come when we get a diagnosis of, oh, this happened, it's kind of the end of his career? Why is a 30-year-old in the NFL considered old? And I'm in my head going, well, damn, this guy might live to be like, 75, 80? That's 50 years, give or take. He's old now. That mentality is kind of like only downhill from there.
Mm-hmm. This podcast is sponsored by Kaptainplantit.com. At Kaptainplantit.com, we have herbal supplements designed to address the most common health issues. Our flagship product is a superfood protein, where it not only has protein, but it has high organic minerals from sources like sea moss, chaga, cordyceps, and lion's mane to actually make you healthy. Go over to Kaptainplantit.com, type in summer24 to get 20% off. Back to the show.
So a lot of injury prevention, a lot of correcting bad patterns is what I got into. And, here we are today.
Oh, man, I love it. I tell you what, when you talk about the prevention instead of the reactive, that's the main focus for everything I do in life. It's like, before the issue happens, let's focus on the body. Let's focus on health. Let's not react, because you can react and you could be too late to react. Mm-hmm. And you can't come back from it sometimes. It may be an injury that bad, or it may just be life or death, right?
Yeah.
But listen, let's focus more on for the first part, focus more on the size, the losing weight and all that stuff, because more people want to know about that, right? But because we're going to dive into that exercise science and injury prevention and seeing that stuff, because without knowing what's going to happen in your body if you're doing what you're doing now, you won't be able to look good for long, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially, right? So let's talk about the topic of muscle building. How do you build muscle?
Easy concept, maybe difficult to implement. It's the SAID principle, right? Yeah. The specific adaptations to the imposed demands. Are you putting your body through the right type of stressors that are going to elicit the muscle growth? And then if we, talk about the nutrition, are you eating the right kind of things to allow that process to happen? So in the exercise form, what we see a lot of is people are a little too vague with what they want. And then when they try to train, then they become hyper specific, but then all of a sudden they're in the wrong kind of atmosphere. You know, I might see a basketball player training like a bodybuilder. I'm like, well, one doesn't correlate with the other. You know, a 400-pound bench press is nice, but as a basketball player, you know, at some point you kind of like just pass the limit that you'll ever need to use this.
Yeah, well, there's a threshold because Kevin Durant used to bench, less than 180 or something? He couldn't bench 180 at the combine.
And one of the best players in the NBA for a very long time. You're seeing him buck the trend of what you might need to see in an athlete. So when we talk about getting the size and building this, are we putting ourselves under the right type of stress? If I were to dive deep on that, a lot of people only know one way to increase the stress is to add more weight. Now we're coming across a lot of skeletal issues where, hey, you're deadlifting 600 pounds. It's a lot of beat up on the body. Are you making sure you're loading that properly? Are you spacing this up and out? Are you every day just kind of just beating yourself because you're forever chasing the dragon, right? You're just going after it and wanting to build on that. So yes, we have our simple terms of hypertrophy training and strength training and what are our rep ranges and our sets, percent-wise. Let's look at some other modalities that will increase your ability to increase size. What's the time under tension like? Are we doing any kind of static holds, muscle recruitment, motor control? My favorite exercise I'll give to everybody from the most elite athlete I've worked with to the grandma who just wants to be able to play with her grandkids.
What is that?
The split squat hold. Get into a lunge position.
Tell them about that. Tell them.
So,
do you want me to perform it?
You know what? Let's perform it. Let's see it real quick.
Yeah. So the split squat. Do you want me to do the knees over toes or just the
You know, we can do a basic one. We can just go maybe a little knees over toes, but we're going to be holding this position right here, right? Now, a lot of people can get into this position. A lot of people can walk during this position. What happens when you have to hold it for 30 seconds and the body's starting to shake, right? And we start to have those little trembles. Yeah. This is telling you that your body doesn't know how to control this. It doesn't know how to recruit all of these fibers to then allow for when you need to move into the action. Maybe you're only utilizing 60% of the muscle fibers in your quads when you're going off on a sprint. What happens if you can use all 100%? And your body's trained to do that. For one, that missing percentage of muscle fibers will grow. You know, I've instituted split squat holds on myself, utilizing a DEXA scan and realized that I stopped squatting, I stopped deadlifting, leg extension, all that. The only thing I do are body weight squats and split squat holds. I didn't lose a single ounce of muscle mass in my legs over a 3-month period. And that was utilizing a DEXA scan. I'm down to 100th of a gram being able to see my exact muscle mass. These things are potent. So, you know, we come into the isometrics.
There we go.
Isometrics are a huge way to really recruit muscle fibers to allow that growth to happen if what you're trying to do is get bigger. Same aspect, the more muscle mass you have, the higher that metabolic rate is. Most people think about increasing their ceiling. Bring that floor up. If you burn 3,000 calories on an average day without exercising, how easy is it to lose fat? I even tell some of the girls that I work with, it's like, if I got the muscle mass up, you can eat whatever you want, provided it's healthy. But you know, you can eat what you want. You don't have to worry about that so much where you're trying to restrict yourself on the food intake. Because then what's going to happen here is you're going to hate training, because training means the eating habit has to be a certain way. And then you start having this like negative emotion tied to this whole process. And if you don't like something, you won't do it. I mean, it doesn't matter. Very few people will ever push themselves to do the things that they need to. So if we're going for the broad population, love it. Make it so it's not difficult on yourself.
Yeah.
Simple movements.
Yeah, I think there's not enough knowledge around that because it's not as flashy. It's not as sexy.
Yeah.
Oh, so you mean to tell me that I can just hold weight and I can keep muscle on or gain more muscle, right? That increase that time under tension? Because people are used to going through an eccentric and concentric phase. What about the isometric, the amortization phase of it? What about that pause phase of it? Why can't I hold that, right, for tension? But what about the tendons as well when you're in that phase?
So along here, what you also have when we get into the tendons is your stretch reflex, so your Golgi tendon receptors, the other receptors in these muscles that are going to provide information to the brain to make the adaptations you need. When we're holding these, we're creating this saying, hey, we're actually good here, we're safe, and we're strengthening this. So now our range of motion becomes easier. From an athlete, range of motion is everything. Strength is almost, very few sports and positions in sports require this kind of strength, right? We look at some of the greatest athletes, sports athletes, you got a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What kind of real muscle mass did this guy develop other than he had a nice in-shape body that was strong and capable for what he needed to do?
Or even Michael Jordan before he put on the weight to go against the Pistons, right?
Yeah.
He was 195, 185.
And at 6'6"?
6'6".
That's small, that's skinny by all the standards that we would kind of talk about now. But the tendons were able to handle the load. This is that adaptations to those imposed demands. So we get into, like how you referenced the difference in that split squat. Do we want to go knees over toes? A lot of people harp on this perfect technique for a lift. And I'm kind of almost against it. Do the movement, because when you're out in the real world, you move funny. Yeah. You get out of a car, it's not really a lateral lunge. It's this weird twist and thing. So if I taught you how to do the perfect lateral lunge, and then you stepped out of your Lambo, your Ferrari, right? You got this low sitting car. You twist your knee up. Now what? The knees over toes, what I loved about this was he showed people not only by like demonstrating and saying, hey, we should be able to do this. He was the example. He's showing you at his age, doing these things. We're doing things that 18-year-olds are doing. You know, I'm 40. I play sports all the time. I do these things. I do these weird movement patterns, and I work on the end ranges and the static holds, and this allows me to perform better. It's not about how much muscle I put on my body, because the last time I was really powerlifting, my back was tight. My legs, my hamstrings were hurting. Yeah. I tried to get across the street to, in the parking lot, and I make my little jog, and I'm feeling everything kind of lock up. I'm like, this is not normal. So we have one method that everybody knows. It's just lift the weights.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I just think that the hyper focus on that versus, hey, why don't we look at these other aspects?
Absolutely.
You know, how can we work on this mobility factor? How can we work on these weird end ranges that you will always find yourself in sports? So,
and working on those allows for you to play longer and look better longer, right? Because they say the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
Right? If you are hurt and injured, good luck. Yeah.
And I find this really funny, especially in the non-professional athlete sphere, where we'll have guys working out 5-6 days a week, pushing mad weight, and a lot of respect to that. But then you see them at home, and they can't pick the kid up off the floor because their back is too tight. I know 3 people that have thrown their backs out, picking up the remote and flushing the toilets. But they deadlift 800 pounds.
Hold up, time. So you mean to tell me they flushed the toilet, threw the back out? What happened after that? Like, what was the, like,
I'm glad they didn't call me to help them. Yeah. No, so it's, when people find out the stuff that I do, and they go, oh, well, what happened here? What happened here? This happened to me. And I hear these stories. I'm like, so you're deadlifting 800 pounds. You're the guy in the gym that everyone stops and watches get the lift done, right? We've seen these videos. And then you pick up the remote off the floor, you turn around to flush the toilet, and your back threw out. Yeah. You're putting way too much stress on your body. And then I'll say, for what reason? Did you practice these end ranges of motion? Do you rotate?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even rotate.
Yeah.
So then what happens when we talk about putting that knee past the toe? If you've never done it, the body's going to freak out. So I've never been here before. It might overreact. And next you're not able to control these things.
Like you can lift 600 pounds within a short range, right? But the minute you go slightly out of that range with less than 1 pound, I can't move my back. I got to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah. And then, the whole medical establishment, sports science establishment is going to be very reactionary.
Yeah. And tell us about that. Tell us how that looks. Because a lot of people in Miami are going through this right now.
Yeah. So knees, hips, and backs. Guys more than women, I'll say shoulders, add that in there. These are joints that get hurt all the time. And then we go to the doctor and let's say we go with the knees, right? This is a common one. You're going to go to the doctor. You're going to say, Doc, my knees hurt. Every time I play a game of pick a basketball or I go for a 2-mile run or a little jog, come back, my knees are killing me. I got to ice my knees. Doctor's going to say, well, you have patellofemoral pain syndrome. Next level, you got chondromalacia. Well, thanks. You just told me what I have in a different language. I told you that 30 seconds ago. What do we do about that? So they hyperfixate on what's going on with the knee. This is where Western medicine has been failing us as they became reductionistic and mechanistic. The advent of the knee surgery, right? We just knee replacement, boom, pop a new one in. We're not a car. We're an ecosystem, right? We're this forest. We're this this jungle that if one thing is wrong, it will affect everything around it. Until we fix that thing, the problem will persist.
And that's called a kinetic chain.
This is your kinetic chain, right?
Yeah.
This is how the body moves. In science with anatomy, we all learned the different muscle parts. Your brain doesn't know left from right. It doesn't know up, down. It doesn't know a pec from a quad. It knows, I got to get up out of this chair. I got to pick something up. I got to go for a run. It's going to make the movement happen. This is how the kinetic chain works. And whatever it needs to make work, it will make work because that part of the brain only cares about surviving. It's not trying to be this optimal, perfectly running machine. It's just like, this is how I'm going to get by. This is how we'll spend the least amount of energy because the brain works on energy conservation. It says, boom, we got this. So I'll overuse my knees because my hips aren't good.
So energy conservation, meaning they call it opportunity cost, where it'll go for the less. What's gonna give the most reward for less work?
Yeah. So the brain, and it learns languages. So we have to think of it like a language. Like if I were to live in France for 30 years and I learned French really well, then I moved away, then I came back. How good is my French going to be, right? Because I learned this other language. I learned this other way of doing it. The body works like that, and then we have to understand that that might not be optimal, but we have to find out the cascading events. So we go right into the knee pain, and we look at the joint-by-joint model, and we say, all right, if knees are overworking and always beat up, something's underworking. 99% of the time, it's the hips.
Antagonist, protagonist. Yeah, that's where this comes in, right?
Yeah, so we come into a muscle that functions, all the muscles that help it, then we have things that work in direct opposition, or when we start to mess with things, what is going to be the next guy up on who's the next guy off the bench to come in?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of overworking knees. And then every time I go back, I test the hip. I'm like, well, your hip is not working for anything. Your knee's overworking. So if I can get the hip to start working, I can start pulling that overwork from the knees, and all of a sudden your knee pain goes away. Like I said, at my age, I play basketball every weekend. I never have problems. I see 30-year-olds that need to ice their knees for 2 days. They walk funny. 18-year-olds having knee pain. You keep addressing the symptom, and we never start fixing the root cause, you're just going to live with it until it breaks, until your body says, I've had enough, and I'm going to shut the area off. You can't use it anymore.
So quick question. So you say if the knee's hurting, something around it, something that's attached to maybe limited mobility or underworking, right? So what about the hip could possibly be going on? Is it like the psoas? Is it the hip flexor? Is it the piriformis? Like what is it?
So that first muscle you said, that's my magic muscle.
Which one?
The psoas.
Psoas, okay.
So the psoas is, one of a bunch of hip flexors and movers and rotators, but it's a very important one because a lot of us have tight hips. And then the second we think of a muscle's tight, we need to stretch it. Well, if we understand maybe why a muscle might be tight, now we can address what needs to be done to get it going. So the psoas, it's a big muscle, crosses over the hip joint, attaches to the spine. But
isn't it the only one that does that?
It's one of the only ones.
One of the only ones? Okay.
That will cross over the joint like that. And so what we see with that is if you look at the shape of the psoas, for anyone who's ever boxed, we have, I don't know the name of it, I call it the double-ended bag. It's attached to the ceiling and the floor. And then you got the ball in the middle.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how it's shaped. You hit it and bounces back and forth. So when the brain stops communicating, it stops functioning, right? The brain's only going to send the corresponding amount of blood to this muscle that it deems as necessary. And we all know if muscles don't get blood, it'll atrophy, it'll shrink.
Yeah.
But we're still attached at 2 points. So then all of a sudden it starts to pull from both ends and we start feeling that sense of tightness. So yeah, we stretch it. We're good for 24, maybe 36 hours. We got to do it again. We got to do it again. All of these people on Instagram talking about wake up those hips. It's all a stretch that they're doing. There's no real activation of the hip to try to re-trigger that to start working. So the hip locks up, gets really tight. The brain's like, well, I still need to move. So let me get some more mobility. Pull it right out of my knee. Now your kneecap is moving up and down like it should. It's maybe a little bit to the side, a little rubbing. And then we go do 2 hours here, 2 hours there. I always tell people, your body's good until it's not.
Until it's not.
So yes, athletes at 30 might feel old because they put their bodies through more, so they're going to hit that wall quicker. Maybe the everyday guy who works in an office all day long, the knees don't hurt, but the hips are always tight. But then he decides he's going to play pickleball now. We got this great sport that's been taking over everything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, my knees are hurting.
Yeah.
Well, they've never been good. You've just now been putting the straws that are breaking the camel's backs.
Yeah.
So we start looking at the hip, and I go, okay, if I can wake this hip back up, get it back to size, I can get the knee to stop overworking.
How do you do that?
This is where a lot of people have have been fooled. I don't want to say they have it wrong. They've been fooled. Percussor guns, massage guns. Vibration is not a recovery method. It is not.
So you mean to tell me I can't buy one of those guns and just put it there and just be like, oh, it feels good? And
You can.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for the right reason.
What reason would it be?
If you want to activate something.
Okay.
So most people are putting a massage gun on tight muscles, sore muscles to recover, to relax. Now, in one aspect, the vibration is going to promote blood flow.
Yeah.
Great for relaxation. What people don't realize is the same thing I talked about earlier with the mechanoreceptors in the body. We have the Golgi tendon I said was a stretch reflex. We have a Pacinian corpuscle, which is your singing cell. This responds to vibration and tells your brain that muscle's ready to work. So boom, now you promoted blood flow, which made it feel a little bit better, but you just told this brain, let's start using this muscle now. We're ready to go. So they are applying a right modality at the wrong time or for the wrong reason. And this is where a lot of people kind of get their bodies jacked up, is that they go beat their bodies up, and then right when they're done with the workout, they're like massaging them. I'm like, you're telling it to get ready for more work, right? Why don't we do compression therapy or a stretch or some light massage?
Yeah.
So we take that percussor gun, whichever $600 gun you want to buy. Look, I'm going to say this right here.
Yeah, please
Don't buy the Hypervolt. You don't need to spend that kind of money on them. Anything that vibrates past 120 beats is going to give you this effect. There's a $70 one on Amazon that I bought and I've been using for 3 years. It works perfect. I'm tired of these overpriced Theraguns and Hyper Ices that are $800 and usually not even built as well. You know what? Here's one great shout out. T-Move's probably got you covered, right? We probably got you covered there. So yes, we take this massage gun and we'll start activating the psoas, start activating hip. Now what we start doing is we start telling the brain this muscle's ready to work, and then we start doing specific drills for that hip. Boom. I'll guarantee you within 2 to 3 weeks, your knee pain is gone. I've done it for 5 years now. Time and time again, people say knee pain. I go hip issues. We fix it there. And it's never a knee issue. You're just treating a symptom because that's what we've been conditioned to do. It's
Not
the way medicine
not the root
works.
cause.
Yeah. So we start getting to the root cause, and all of a sudden we start fixing that source of trouble. And I don't heal anybody. Real doctors that are into holistic medicine, they don't heal people. They provide the environment for the body to heal themselves. We are just there to promote that process to happen.
Just to give you the information and tell you, hey, check that out over there.
Yeah.
That's it.
And a lot of times people will come in and I'll be like, look, it's that. And they're, that's all? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Let it work. Trust this process. So when we come into a lot of that knee pain, tight hips, tight hamstrings, let's start playing around and understanding how the body works with each other. And we might start looking at root cause stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. So the hip is one, right? But then we're looking at the next joint below it, the ankle mobility. That's something knees over toes guy. Shout out Ben Patrick. That's my guy down there, up there in Clearwater, Florida. Ankle mobility is one of the things he focuses on, and he's talking about getting that knee pass, allowing that the Achilles tendon to stretch, right? Because a lot of people do have tight Achilles tendons. What's your philosophy on that?
So I'm going to say knees over toe guy has done a great service to people understanding how to have longevity, how to play sports at 40, which is not supposed to be able to do, right?
On some LeBron stuff, huh?
Yeah, you know, if I look at a Messi and a Ronaldo and a LeBron all doing this stuff in the NBA, I should be able to play at the park.
Yes.
And not be walking around crippled. So, ankle mobility. It is a beautiful thing because we need to teach our tendons and our muscles to stretch to these full lengths. If we only operate, like I said, in a short fashion, we go right back to that SAID principle. We only know this language. So then when we go past her, the body does not know how to react. I'll put in a little funny thought here. If your hips are bad, the body is going to lock up the ankles on you. Even if you have the ability to move this range, it won't let you. Because the number one stressor to any human being at any time is falling. And if it feels that your hips can't maintain your balance, it'll lock up other things to make sure we get it. So then we start to see a lot of ankle stiffness. And then we exacerbate that with sports or with never actually working these ranges of motion. So when we start training this body to kind of go past that range, you know, we're always told when I was growing up, you don't squat with your knees past your toes. And then
90.
Yeah, 90 degrees. And we want to keep it over and very perpendicular. And then we look at, you know, anatomy of a human. And I'm like, we're all built different. Yeah. So like our squat's not going to look the same. It's not going to operate the same way. So then if I limit myself to never allowing this to go past, what happens when it does?
Yeah.
When I take a step down, when I go down steps, I flex more than what the establishment for physical therapy says is the operating range of motion for a knee,
Yes. Yes.
which is supposed to be 90 degrees.
Yes.
Going downstairs, you pass that.
And they actually, knees over toes guy, Ben Patrick, he has the Patrick step up where he mimics stepping down from and stepping back up from it. Or is it the Poliquin step up? It's either one.
It's called the Poliquin, and then he's been really doing a lot of work towards that.
Yeah. I guess he put it at an angle and
And he
called
does
it
the elevated, the heel elevated, right?
Yeah.
Which I like because what happens is in the gym setting, I hate to see the heel elevated barbell back squat because it's a way for people to cheat the range of motion on their ankles.
Yeah.
They're allowed to go deeper, work out the quads, but it's because your ankles are not that good.
Yeah.
So you avoid it, right? But with that protocol he's created, it's how do we progress it? So maybe we go here because we have very bad ankle dorsiflexion, and then we lower it and we get better and we get used to driving down. And then at the end of the day, you're able to do your pistol squat. You're able to really drive that flexion. So if your body's comfortable at moving at all these ranges of motion, life's going to be pretty easy. You're not going to come across a weird step that takes you out.
Yeah.
So
You're more like an NFL running back at that point. You can stop on a dime, come back, pick over, pick something else, run that way, right?
yeah, you see these crazy ranges, and people think it's all that's because he's an athlete. He can do that. I mean, he might be working on the things that allow him to do that all of us have access to. It's just the education, the marketing, the industry itself. We're also an evolutionary industry.
Yeah.
Became famous in the 70s, maybe the 50s, and then it really popped off in the 70s with bodybuilding. Fitness in general is relatively new to humans.
Yeah.
So we're evolving, we're learning.
Well, one of the reasons why it could be possibly new is because we were all active, and it wasn't like we had to go to a gym for 30 minutes and get our workout in. It was part of our lives, right? We would just do it organically and naturally. We didn't have to confine
Work life
ourselves.
was there, and we weren't riding in cars everywhere, and we weren't sitting behind a desk all the time.
And taking elevators.
Taking elevators. Sometimes I'm guilty of that. A lot of stairs in a day. Sometimes I want to take it, but people abuse that.
Yeah.
They go for the comforts, and next thing you know, they wonder why the body's not working the way they want to when they decide they want to get up and go for a run. Well, you've been sitting down for 5 years.
You've been overconvenienced.
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 And understimulated physically,
Yes,
right? So we we evolve in one way and then we devolve in another. So it becomes very hard to try to balance that out.
Yeah. But speaking about that, I was playing in China for a little bit, right? I was in the airport. I had to use the restroom. And I walk in there. listen, dude. So I walk in the airport and I go to the restroom. I'm like, dude, where's the toilet? There's no toilet. What do you mean? You got to squat.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. I'm over here squatting, knees past the toes.
And look, I'm gonna say I can't do that. I'm still working on making sure I get that. So I usually have these protocols I'll bring people through, and I'll tell someone I want you to lay on the ground. Can't use your hands, and you can't use momentum. You got to control yourself all the way down. And the amount of people I see try to just squat straight to the floor, and I'll look at them and I'll be like, unless you can Asian squat, it's gonna be a very hard movement. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
To be able to just put that butt straight to the floor. And the people that you see doing it now in the fitness room have been working on that. So it gets really hard. So it's you have to realize we are a product of the environment we're in. We stop at 90 degrees. We have the toilets.
Yeah.
I'm dreading the day I go and they tell me the same thing. No, that's the toilet right there. Got to squat down. Like, oof.
Well, thankfully, I was an athlete, and I was focused on range of motion and mobility, flexibility, all that stuff. I didn't have an issue because I was working with knees over toes guy at that point, but some of my teammates, though.
It's a culture shock. And it only hit them because they physically couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I believe, the toilet, the remote control, what else? Cars, what else limits our ability to...
the chairs
to activate our genes the right way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this will tie right back into what I was saying earlier, the specific adaptations to your imposed demands. Your body's going to adapt to whatever you put it through, for better or for worse. Yeah. It's an amazing unit at being able to adapt. And if we say that this position right here is what we're adapted to, don't ask it to do much else.
Yeah.
Because this is where turning around to flush the toilet, all of a sudden you haven't rotated in really much. Boom, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of fathers out there, one of my biggest joys is being able to play with my daughter on the floor. Get up and down, pick her up, move her around. And when I realized that my lifting patterns weren't sustainable for this, I changed it up. Because when I was younger and I would compete, lifting weights was the demands I wanted to put myself through. But now it's mobility, longevity, it's playing with my kid. So what do I need? I work on these things consistently. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, I have probably about a 45-minute regimen before I lift that I'm mobility work.
What does that look like?
I am going to probably foam roll a lot of the tight areas that I need to work on, like my TFLs and my IT bands, the piriformis. I'm really going to work on that. Mm-hmm. I'm working on thoracic mobility. Mm-hmm. I'm working on my superficial backlines and really doing a forward fold stretch so I know I can bend down and pick something up. The one thing that I never understood was they tell you, don't pick things up bending at your back. That's picking up anything in your life.
Yeah.
Like, how many things weigh like 2 pounds that you just bend down and pick it up?
Yeah.
You never train it, all of a sudden,
the
remote, you're going to throw your back out. So I work on these things. Static stretching that I used to build into my dynamic stretching, into my mobility work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm legit lunging through the gym, knees over toe style.
Yeah.
Just, I'm finding a pattern. I'm walking through. People are looking at me weird. I'm just like, I'm just working on this.
Yeah, but you said static and dynamic. You know, that's something that we shouldn't just gloss over, right?
Okay.
Define the difference between static and dynamic. What does that look like?
Okay, so by definition alone, static is just holding, mm-hmm. and dynamic is going to be through your motion, through a movement pattern. The way I always classify it is that flexibility and mobility are two distinctly different things, right? You're not flexible. You're not mobile because you're flexible and flexible because you're mobile. Yep. You can be one or the other. I utilize static stretching, holding my stretches, reaching down and touching my toes, doing a hamstring, doing a straddle split to just hold these positions, mm-hmm. has prep work for my mobility. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where a lot of people kind of miss the mark, is that we were taught a lot of times is like, all right, we're going to static stretch. And then we got taught, it's like, well, no, static stretching doesn't really inherently help you at all. We need to do dynamic stretching. And I'm like, okay, so we go through the whole path of the dynamic stretching and warm-ups. And now when you start becoming a little more going down your path to trying to figure things out yourself, you start to piece these little puzzles. You'd be like, oh, this is
the
what's
nuances.
Going on.
When you go down your path, the nuances really become uncovered.
Yeah, and we start looking at this and go, oh, well, if I static stretch, I promoted blood flow, I loosened up the muscle, I got rid of some of this, inherent tension in my fascia, to then now I got mobility work. And now the mobility work teaches me my ranges of motion. So now when I lift, I can hit my range of motion better because I've prepped everything. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand that that's predominantly more important than me deadlifting 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Because how many times am I ever going to come across a need in my life to lift that weight? Not too often.
Yeah. A car accident where you have to lift the car up or something like that.
And at that point, I'm probably just going to bank on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Lift it up and then
10,000 pounds.
Yeah, and feel broken the next day because that whole adrenaline rush got me, right? Yeah. But my ability to pick up my daughter off the floor, get on the floor, that's an every day, multiple times a day kind of thing. Me mowing the yard, me cleaning the house. Yeah. That's everyday stuff.
Yeah. I think as a society, we started to major in the minor and minor in the major, right? We really focus on things that are so grandiose, and we just throw the things that are necessary to the side, right?
I've seen this video circulating a lot of what the physical education curriculum in the high school ranks used to be in the 50s. And you look at everybody, and they're moving. And then what did they have them do? They're swinging on the monkey bars, and they're running over and jumping over the wall. And they're just running and being able to do X amount of push-ups. And then we look at a lot of these, especially more of the big high school settings where the sports are really predominant. Mm-hmm. They're in the weight room, pushing maximal weight.
Mm-hmm. I did that.
Yeah. And we looked at this and we go, all right, this is the new standard of fitness. And we got away from the other thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we look at society back then to now, I think they were pretty much more fit than we were. Yeah. The fitness people is like a niche community versus back then, everyone was in shape because everybody moved. Mm-hmm. Everybody moved like a human moves. And we have to remember, we're animals at nature, right? We have to move like animals, do things, just move around in weird positions. Mm-hmm. And we got away from that because we wanted to get the big
Arnold Schwarzenegger caused all this.
Boom.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the one that we should blame for.
He was like, where the timeline split. Yeah. And then we got even into the generation of the bodybuilders after that.
Yeah.
Where I'll even defend the golden era.
Phil Heaths and all that. Yeah.
I'll defend the golden era. And we have the Arnolds and the Sergey
Ronnie
Livia.
Coleman.
And then we get into the Ronnie Colemans and the Kai Greens and the Phil Heaths. And they became these bowling balls. They just looked like bowling ball stacked on bowling ball.
Yeah.
And then what happened is that's a sport. This is where people didn't want to understand it. That's a sport. So yeah, those are going to be different. But they took that as lifestyle, physical fitness. Being able to do that's the healthy lifestyle. And I'm like, well, and now you did all that, but you can't put your arm over your head.
Yep.
It hurts. Or you can't bend down to pick something up because everything's tight and jacked up. So nothing translates. So it's, part of that journey is trying to
find that balance. I tell you what, speak about balance. So when I was in high school, dude, I was a maniac, bro. Like, you think I'm crazy now. Oh, man. So I would go, I would have a class that they would give me like a health class or something like that. I would be cool with the health teacher because he was the football coach. So I would, basically persuade him to let me just go lift weights. So I would go lift weights during that period. After school, I had 2 hours of basketball training. Then after that, I had a personal trainer that I had since 11 years old. And he had me on plyometrics. So all I was doing was stress shortening cycle. All I was doing was jumping bounds, quick jumps, squat jumps, depth jumps, right? The shock jumps, like the Russians created, right? I was doing all of that stuff on top of the weights. So I'll tell you what happened to me though, right? So I was doing all of that. I hated stretching, lifting a lot, and then one day, fractured my pelvis. Involution fraction, all right, and a fracture, and I was out for 2 months, and my coach was like, "Lance, I told you to stretch. I told you should do your static stretches after, because we always did dynamic. We always did the A skips, the B skips, the C skips, and all that stuff. But I hated static stretching.
It's boring.
Yeah. Do you think most people hate, the plyos, the static, the dynamic? Do you think that they not even know that, or they're just oblivious to it, or what is it?
Yes to everything. I think a lot of times people are more inclined to want the gratification of the lift. I just pushed this weight. It's like an achievement they just reached. When it comes to the preparation, people don't want to spend time prepping to allow their body to do the thing that needs to do, or they're going to ask it to do. This is where the preparation plays a key role, because in your ability to, a lot of the plyometric work that you do, the end result is to being able to dunk.
Jump higher, run faster, react quicker.
So then people want to do those things, but they don't know everything that preps the body. But they don't realize that this allows that to happen there.
Yeah.
So it gets very, it's a psychological thing where they just want that gratification right now.
Yeah.
And then they miss the trees for the forest.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It's they don't understand that, like, hey, you actually learning how to absorb energy is going to translate to you being able to bound better. So then in a game, both of you jump up for a rebound, neither of you get it. Who's going to land and get back up quicker?
Me.
Right? So who's spending the time working on those nuances that then will translate? A lot of the work that I do with the pro athletes is a lot of energy absorption and giving off.
Yeah.
I have a video up where it's working with a prominent running back, and his whole thing is to, we're taking a big medicine ball that's filled with water, and we're trying to throw it into his chest as hard as he can, and he's going to catch it, and he's going to throw it right back. Or he's going to catch it, shove it off, and go for a run.
That recoil.
And that recoil ability. And in basketball, I tell this to a lot of people, and like the way this translates, you're going to drive to the lane. You're going to drop your shoulder into somebody. If you don't know how to absorb that impact, you're going to bounce right off this guy. Yeah. So how do you absorb that impact? The Euro step that became famous.
Yeah.
No one ever really taught people over here until they started seeing the Europeans do it, and they go, absorb, give off. This is where you're making that second step. This is how it's going to translate. And then once you start doing that, we get back into the stuff we were talking about earlier. How are we loading up these tendons so we can teach them to take on that absorption, strengthen them, react better, and have longevity? Because if your body doesn't know how to absorb, dissipate through the body and cause a lot of shock. It's only a matter of time before something like this happens because we haven't taught the body to do these things.
Speaking of that absorption, I had a teammate. His name was Eric Maynor. Played in the NBA, point guard. Not the fastest, not the most athletic. I've probably seen him dunk 2 or 3 times in my lifetime. He's about 6'3". And when he would drive to the lane, he would almost be like parallel with the ground to hit the guy that was coming towards him because he knew he was coming at him full speed. So he would gauge the force that was coming towards him. He would angle his body just enough so when he hit him, he was straight up. I was like, dude, this guy is amazing. I was like, how do you do that?
Ahead of his time kind of stuff.
Ahead of his time. Listen, I've seen this guy do some incredible stuff, man, like just with his body, how he could contort and know the bodies and the movement and how he read angles. One of the smartest, IQ-wise, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he coaches for OKC. I think he got drafted. No, he got drafted by Utah Jazz, but he coaches for OKC. Listen, intelligent guy, and he was my roommate. So,
and this comes down to learning how to absorb impact. How do we take on energy and give it off? Because in sports, that's all that is. It's receiving energy and giving it off. This guy's just, maybe he was taught, maybe he innately knew this, but he was applying these concepts. And this is a huge thing that I work on with athletes because of their want and need to jump higher, run faster. So one of the first things I have people do is get on the box and step off. Over and over, because they're not going to be able to.
Depth drop.
The depth drops. Right? They're not I'm not going to progress to certain things if I know their body can't absorb energy. Because then it's a ticking time bomb before something bad happens.
You got to handle your own G-force.
You got to be able to know how to use your body to take this on. And that kind of work is phenomenal, but it also goes right into that. These are the nuanced things that you work on. Why do we static stretch? And in my case, I static stretch to dynamic stretch to hit ranges of motion to then do the lifting that I do. But that's where, when we talk about functional fitness, I don't like the term being used as much as it is because functional fitness is not one thing. For me, it's something. For you, it's something else. So for my world, that's how I use it. And I get into these nuances. Sometimes if I'm doing plyometric work, I'm just learning how to drop. That's it. I won't even jump that day. And then I think another part that people need to understand is ballistic versus plyometric. Ballistic is a one shot. It's usually just the shortening to the lengthening, and not the shortening to the lengthening to the shortening to the lengthening.
The shortening cycle.
And they don't go through the cycle. They just hit it one time. So they go, no, you're working on ballistics. How do you learn how to repeatedly do this motion?
You ever seen those African people, the tribe?
The Maasai tribe.
Oh, my Lord. They got like 40-inch after the recoil.
I know everyone that sees that goes, if I had that vert, I'd be in the NBA. And they're just using ankle flexion. Just boom. And they're learning how to absorb really well. I think there needs to be a case study, a big case study, and bring some of them over here, or people over there, and teach this kind of stuff, because the freak of nature athletes that will come from that kind of work, and mind you, these guys are not doing 90% of the stuff that we're doing here.
And they're bouncers. I mean, it looks like everybody from that tribe, 40-inch plus. Right? They're lean as hell now. It's different than jumping with 200 pounds instead of 150, right? But
the fact that they can do it without having to contract that whole body and then shoot.
Probably never lifted a weight.
Probably never. They're all in what they would call the functional fitness realm. They just do the things that translates to their life. There is no gym for them to go work out in, right? That concept doesn't matter to them. So, when we look at those things, make sure that what you're doing matters. This is why the stretching is important. And in my case, it leads to the mobility. The mobility leads to me performing a movement that I want to do. And in most cases, like I've cut out a lot of weightlifting in general, because most of my translation is I'll play some basketball, I'll go play pickleball because, it's got some friends that like to play it, and then just playing with my daughter. I can get on the floor and come right back up. And I actually noticed this yesterday. I went to a friend's house. We lifted we're doing tire flips, 500-pound tire. I can tell you the last time I flipped a tire, but when I went down to grab it and get into my squat, everything felt good. I didn't feel like I was like, oh, this is tight on my back, or my hips don't want to work. I plopped right down, and I was able to do my movement. I'm not flipping it 100 times, but what I wanted to do, I was able to do it.
I think that's one of the things that I wish people like you had more of a platform and have more of a voice, and other people that are yeah, you know, I don't even talk about or bring other people into it, that are loud and boastful and they talk about their big muscle. It's like, listen, you got good muscle, it looks good, but how does that translate to real life? How can you now take that 250-pound body and move it over there and stop really fast?
Yeah.
Without breaking, without hurting the next day, all right? Or how could you turn around, pick up something, come back to that same position and hold your balance, proprioception, right? Do you have any of that? Do you have any spatial awareness, knowing how not to fall, right?
Do you even have control over the motion you have access to?
Yeah.
This is something that this was famous with. It was like an argument between Brandon Marshall when he was with the Broncos and Joey Porter. And Brandon Marshall, I believe it was this way. He said he had popcorn muscles.
What is that?
You have all this volume and size on you for show. You can't do anything with it.
Yep.
And Instagram is very prominent for, if you've got a nice body, you'll promote anything, and they'll think that this is the magic way. You know, let's kind of pull the curtain back. What kind of gear are you on? You've got all these muscles. How much juice are you taking?
Yeah.
What kind of drugs are you taking to get skinny? What kind of drugs are you taking to get big? You know, great. You're jacked. You look amazing without a shirt on. Can you touch your toes? Simple thing. Can you even touch your toes? And most of the time I find that they can't. They can't.
They cannot. They're in the middle of their shin.
Yeah, and they're grunting. They're going, oh, no, this feels really tight. Yeah. Okay, well, when the world demands that you need to use those muscles for something, you're not going to be able to do it. So we got caught up in a lot of the aesthetics with fitness, big time.
But we can have both, though. We can look athletic and 100%. We can move. Because the thing, I don't want to harp on people and tell them, oh, you're big and you look stupid. No. It's cool to be big, but now also include the other. Like, don't do it at the expense
of
that.
Yeah. So this is one of the big things that I've been focusing on with my programming and my push was we chase the aesthetic. Are we doing it for the now at the sake of the later?
Yep.
Right? Yes, you look great now, but did you take so much substances now that you're not going to make it to 70 in good health? You know, I have my goals for myself, and not everybody wants to live to the age that I want to live to. I'd love to be over 100 years old. I want to compete in the Centenarian Olympics. I want my great-grandkids to challenge me to a race and I can beat them.
You're dabbling into stem cells at that point.
Oh, yeah. You know, this is where I might go off on the deep end with stuff.
Go off.
But, you know, if I am living in a particular way to try to live to that age, I know now is going to be covered. Now, can I also get the aesthetic look that I want? Yes. Am I going to do it at the expense of the other stuff? This is a dialogue that everyone needs to have with themselves. I'm going to say personally, no, it's not. It's never worth it.
No, not worth it.
Because if you look at Ronnie Coleman now, he's what, 50, 60 maybe?
Oh, man, he looks terrible, man.
The guy needs a walker to move around. And he was an icon in the sport. But people forgot that that's a sport. It's the same reason why you have NFL running backs, NFL linemen, pro basketball players at the age of like 60 looking crippled. It's because that is a sport. It takes a toll on the body. If you're taking a toll on your body just for an aesthetic appeal, I'm going to say, is it worth it? And almost all the time the answer is going to be at the end, no.
Well, yeah.
Most of the time. Some people will say
some people say, I lived life to the fullest and I'm out.
Great.
See,
I'm here for a good time, not a long
not
time
a long
kind of thing. So that's the dialogue people need to have. But I think the industry chasing the aesthetic because Instagram promotes it, because people want to see pretty. They want to see, the guy with six-pack abs.
With the big glutes on the women and all that.
The big butts on the women, it sells. And I think the part that hurts the most is when you see people like that promoting a product or a protocol that is not sustainable. It's not real. It doesn't work. Yeah. Especially when it comes to the products, because now you're putting things in your body that can have long-term effects.
Yeah, it's at some point I look at that and I'm like, do people know that it's, or do they, or they do know, but do they even care because they just want to be lied to? Because at some point we want something to look up to and something to aspire to have, right? And
beacon on the hill, I can get there. I feel from my experience that a lot of this is they know that it's not the best for them.
Yeah.
I don't think they know how bad it actually might be. So they're willing to take that gamble.
Okay.
They go, like a soda.
Yeah, you're not giving a full disclaimer.
Yeah, we have like a soda. Be like, I know a soda's not bad for me, or not good for me, but is it this bad for me?
But how not good is it for me?
So I think if more people understood how not good some of these things are, they would.
Like a Ozempic. Let's talk about that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. An Ozempic face. It's now coming around. Look, Ozempic. It's a GLP-1. Mm-hmm. It's there to play with the insulin response system of the body. It's a peptide, so it's not a foreign anabolic compound in the system. Do you have the issue that you need it? This is where people go because they're going to chase I lost a lot of weight. It helped me there. But when people come off of it, you're going to see the weight gain come back. And then what are the detrimental effects your body goes through when you are dousing your system with that kind of stuff? So unless you have legit insulin sensitivity problems, it's almost like a Russian roulette. You see a lot of these people, and it promotes something, and all of a sudden they'll look at the celebrity. They go, oh my gosh, he or she lost so much weight, and they look so much better. I see those pictures. I don't see that. I see sunken eyes, the jowls.
But beauty's in the eye of the beholder, though.
And that too.
Yes.
Be okay with who you are and how you look sometimes and work to better. But the Ozempic it's just like metformin. Everyone was given the pill in lieu of the work. Mm-hmm. And the studies come out and they show you that exercise is better than metformin. Diet is better than metformin.
Of course.
Oh, now you do exercise and diet.
Together. Wow. And then you throw a little bit of lifting in there.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of cardio with all.
This novel idea of if you do the work, you'll get there. And people want the results and they don't want the journey. They don't want that self-discovery that happens in these processes. So when you get fast results, you don't appreciate stuff. So Ozempic is doing it for them.
So what they say, what comes easy isn't respected. What took a lot of hard work and sacrifice to get is something that people that we revere and we love, and we love people because of that. Right?
Because it's if it's easy, it's not
special.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Special isn't everything for everyone. It's a specific thing.
When you see a LeBron James, the reason you can appreciate a LeBron James because you don't see that a lot.
Yeah.
When you see a Messi, you don't see that. You see other great soccer players and you see him above them. And you go, that is something crazy.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of people taking the peptide therapy. And I usually warn people about this because the market's become very saturated with facilities that will offer this stuff. Mm-hmm. A couple things I'll say is it's going to cost money. So you're going to be dumping some money into this because it's a new fad. A lot of education is happening in this process. So we're learning things about it. And then you got to be careful with who's trying to sell you on this stuff. Are they giving you 2 or 3 peptides that all do the same thing? Just trying to rob your money because you're chasing this new thing.
Yes.
And then the other aspect is, do you want to be optimal or are you trying to become Superman? Are you trying to just take so much stuff and then you realize that even so much of that stuff, your body can't handle it. It's going to fight it off and you're going to have issues later on. Especially when we come to guys with testosterone replacement therapy being a big thing these days.
Talk about that.
Is a time and a place for everything. I always say the right thing at the right time. A lot of people do the right thing at the wrong time or in the wrong order. So when I see a kid who's 19, 20 years old talking about he's on test, even if he got it from a doctor and he has clean stuff and he's administering the proper way.
You're 19, 20.
Are you clinically low? Is there something really going on? And I'm not even talking about the insurance's standards because I think they kind of play too hard on the other end. Yeah. But a 19-year-old kid with an 800 level of test, taking more tests is abuse. And they don't realize what's going to happen. And there are some Instagram influencers out there that I look at and I go...
Sam Soliker? Yeah, I saw that guy.
Look, the guy's positive. He's never a negative person. I like his content that he talks about stuff. But you can't tell me a 22-year-old looking like a 45-year-old, that big, it looks like he aged, is healthy. And what I think lacks in this, and this happens also with some celebrities that are very big in the space or very influential and they're massive in terms of size, you're not clear about how you actually get there. Mm-hmm. So you tell people this is all hard work, but you never talk about the other end.
Yeah.
This becomes a problem.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're selling a bill of goods that isn't there.
You're just lying to people. And then now they're trying to attain something that you can't even attain naturally.
Exactly.
Right? You're 5% body fat all year round. It's 5% body fat. You can't sleep at night.
And your body, this goes right in with the hardcore dieting when people cut their calories by so much and they wonder why they have bad sleep. You don't have enough to live right now. Your body's like fighting. So you're trying to shoot for this unrealistic goal when you realize the person that you're modeling after can't even do that.
Impossible.
And they're on the juice.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not against people taking it, but I'm pro people telling the truth of, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing to counter that. This is what I'm doing that. Because now you put people on this regimen and you put this ideal in their brain that is, you cannot do that naturally. Like it just,
no.
You know, I got to the point where I just don't even talk anymore about it. I'm just like, you know, you guys do whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to go that approach where it's just, they're so set in the ways that there's no convincing you can do of anybody else. They have to want to hear the information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they gotta fuck up. And they gotta go down that path and realize that they did the wrong thing. And then sometimes they're ready to actually hear. And this is that self-discovery stuff, right? This is how you did your journey. This is, things happened and now we gotta bounce back from that.
Yeah.
So I do that. And then, you know, what happens with a lot of these guys when they're promoting their fitness brand and they don't tell them they're on a lot of gear, then the kid's trying to attain this stuff. And then when he goes and talks to the doctor and the doctor's like, I'm not going to do this for you. It's not good for you. He's going to get upset with the doctor when the doctor's doing the right thing at that time.
Even if the doctor didn't want to do it, you know something's up.
Yeah.
If the doctor don't want to make extra money on the side. Like,
if that guy's not willing to make some money off you and just milk your insurance or take your cash, maybe take a step back.
Yeah.
You know, it's that hedonic treadmill. Yeah. We get to one level and that's never good enough, and then we got to get to the next one, and we're forever chasing this endorphin rush.
So back when we first met, you were telling me about scars, you were telling me about tooth pullings, you were telling me about tattoos. Tell me about how that plays a factor into health and to injuries, though, because you were telling me about one specific player who would have a open field injury without contact, and it was always the same way, looking the same. Tell me about that one.
So I have to start this by talking about the hierarchy of the body.
Yes.
Everyone in my field works in biomechanics and movement patterns. If I were to create a totem pole, movement's on the bottom. It is the result of everything else working. So when we talk about this hierarchy, we have to think of what systems in the body there are and what order of importance that they run in. So the number one system that runs everything is the limbic system. It's our emotional state.
Emotional state.
You know, the easiest way I describe this to you is, especially if you're old enough, is if you've had a loved one pass away and you have to process this grief, how well do you perform that day? Usually not bad. So when my grandfather passed away when I was a young kid, I played basketball. So I went to the court trip. It's like I've never dribbled a ball before in my life. I couldn't focus. I couldn't keep my head right. I couldn't make my hand-eye coordination work. So we have that. Right under it is the field in which I work in. This is in the fascia. This is scars to the body. And if we proceed down, we have the vestibular ocular system. We have the immune system, the organs, the viscera. We have just this whole cascading event, and then movement at the end. And the way it works is if anything on the chain doesn't work, anything underneath it is going to be just inhibited.
It's like a math equation.
Yeah. The earlier you mess up the equation, the result's done.
Crazy.
And the problem is that the body's going to try to find a way to make that happen. And this is where we get messed up. So, you know, in the world of medicine, the fascia is a relatively new discovery. Two things about the fascia. It's the only substance in your body to touch every other thing in your body. The only thing.
So it's like the, what do they call it? The liaison, almost.
That's a great way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
It is this intermediary for every other part of the body. The other part about it, it's where the nerves reside. So in a gross level of thinking, right, we have our skin, we have our muscle, we have our bone. Well, underneath that skin and over the muscle, and intertwined all there, we have the fascia. And it's where the nerves are at. So the nerves is how the brain communicates to the body. This has always been my battle with a lot of chiropractors, not all, is that they go and adjust the bones, and I'll say, what moves your bones? And muscle. What moves your muscles?
Tendons.
And then from there?
Nerves.
And from there?
Fascia.
The brain.
The brain, the fascia. Yeah.
So if the brain is moving your muscles to pull the bones out of place, why don't we go there instead of realigning the bones? And very few chiropractors work in that space. And those are the ones I will respect intimately. The one that I work with, and she works on me. She works in that facet. She barely does any adjustments. It's a lot of soft tissue work and rebalancing. So we get into the fascia, And the brain has to communicate to the muscles via the nervous system. Well, we do that through electrical signaling. We are liquid beings. So we need hydration in our system for the electricity to conduct fully.
What is a conductor?
So we damage the fascia. This could have been, I was bit by a dog when I was a kid. A couple of our athletes, it's amazing how many athletes bang up their eyebrows, fall out of a bunk bed, come around a corner, fall out of a tree, something. As a little kid, we're reckless. Cut to the eyebrows, some stitches, we're on our way. Wisdom teeth being pulled. Open heart surgeries, do cosmetic surgeries. Anything that cuts the body and damages the fascia distorts that signaling. Because when scars heal up, it heals up as we call scar tissue. Yeah. It heals up dry. And that dry environment dissipates our signaling. So basically the hierarchy is the brain is going to gather a lot of information about the world around us using our feet, our hands, our organs to give us spatial awareness. This is what comes big time for
proprioception.
The proprioception with our athletes. It's like your ability to understand who's around you without looking at them. And then we have our eyes.
It's called spidey senses.
The spidey senses, right? When you're driving to the lane and you know someone's kind of behind you a little bit, you don't have to look at them. You know they're there.
You know it. You feel it. You see it.
So it takes in all this information and it says, all right, we're going to do this movement. And now it sends out the signal. It hits the scar and the scar dissipates the signal to a percentage, just for mathematic numbers, right? We were firing at 100% and now a muscle's firing at 70%. The body's really good at adapting. So it's like, Lance, don't worry, I got you. I'm going to make up that difference. So now we got one area doing 130%, one area at 70%. And you're good.
Until you're not.
Right? So
you're not.
We come up with pain, chronic pain by nature, inability. And we start to realize that your body compensated in a way to protect itself and still move, and it learned this language. To undo this, we need to start going back further and further to the root. Yeah, I could find the tight muscle, take it down, find the muscle that is working and vibrate it, or whatever methodology I want to use to activate it. But how long before it reverts back because of the energy conservation? It's switching back to the language it knows better. So I trace it back to scars. And there's only one other area that supersedes mine, which is the emotions. I'm not equipped for that. So I outsource. Yeah. Hey, maybe there's some stuff, traumas you need to do.
Some hypnosis or something like that.
Yeah,
some plant medicine.
Guy to talk you to sleep and
little shaman work.
Yeah. So that one, so when we get into the physical realm, I'm looking at the scars. This is where everybody gives me the what the fuck moment. Like they're like, did that just really happen that way? I'm looking for a scar on your body, however insignificant it could be. It could be the tattoos. Maybe that guy's hand was a little too deep and it went in. Belly button piercings, tongue piercings. I've seen these. I've seen adenoid removal surgeries from NFL running backs who are about to call retirement. We find this scar. What we're doing is I'm trying to see what's causing the gap in the communication and how can I fix that blockage. So for the testing procedures, I'm essentially using my own hands as a way to bridge that gap because my hands hold a lot of electricity. It's how we turn on our phones. These are called piezo electrical points. For anyone out there who wants to try to question this, I'm providing an immediate bridge. So the signal is essentially going through my hands and then jumping the block. And I test the muscles and I find out if it works. And I'm doing this through the whole body to see if I can find a global facilitator. And when I find it, then my goal is to just massage that scar tissue up because I can't remove it. And you cannot break up scar tissue. This is another...
So you can't take the metal...
I'll get into
the scraper, right? It's called a scraper, right? Yeah. The fascial scraper.
The techniques I've seen with that are a bit ridiculous.
But they tell you that after you do it, you should be better, though.
You should be, but it's like if I shot you in the arm and then I shot you in the leg, you'd be like, well, I shot you in the leg to make your arm heal. You can't introduce more pain and trauma on the body to speed up healing. You're still creating trauma and affecting the nervous system.
Let's come back to that.
All right, so yes, back to the... So I'm looking for the scar, essentially. That is inhibiting the primary muscle to stop working, which then causes the other muscles to overwork. And I manipulate the area. I loosen it up, essentially. And I allow hydration back into that scar tissue. This allows the signal to come through again. And then over time, what we do is we call this neural stacking. So I'm going to open up this window. I'm going to rebalance how the body's operating, and then I'm going to put you through movements. This all comes down to my one tenet, the right thing at the right time. So yeah, I'm going to vibrate the psoas. It doesn't like to work. And I'm going to maybe tape up the knee using some KT tape to keep it in place a little bit and decompress it. And then I'm going to have you do your split squats and your lunges and And I'm going to progress you over time, almost like a baby learning how to walk. So by the end of our protocol, you're doing everything full speed without the pain, because I have to teach that body how to operate the right way again. Mm-hmm. I've done this with old ladies who want to be able to take care of their grandkids, to NFL running backs who were thinking about retirement, for guys who couldn't jump on a 12-inch box, to getting more time. Because we didn't do anything other than bring that body back into balance and then allow it to start working the way it's supposed to work.
You just move the crap out of the way.
Yeah, we're just, clearing out the area. Say, look, here you go. And when that body is not stressed, it'll start to heal. So this is a big component of stuff. I love when people are stressed because it reveals everything. Mm-hmm. I always ask the people, my back's been killing me lately. I go, okay, what's going on in life? Fighting with the wife, kids causing you problems, kids are moving out, you got to buy a new home. It's like, the stress is a little up there. And I'm like, this stress, the brain's taking power and energy to process what's going on, but it's leaving your body to, hey, I'll be back. Yeah. And then you notice, be like, oh, my knees, my back.
I remember when I came to you a while back and we did the DEXA scan, right? Mm-hmm. And, we looked at everything in my body. You're like, Lance, everything is like elite athlete, like everything but just this one thing. And I was like, what? It was like the visceral fat. Mm-hmm. He was like, that's normal. And for a person like you, this is off. And I'm like, yeah, I already knew what it was. I didn't have to say anything. I just, just got in a new relationship, and this person's a nighttime person. I'm a morning person. I like getting up at 5. They like staying up and have their conversations at 11. Mm-hmm. My bedtime is at 9 p.m. It was rough for me for the first few months.
Yeah, and these stressors will start to affect the body. Yeah. We'll see that sleep goes down. We'll see that your ability for your nervous system to really want to fire the way it should goes right like that. So it's a lot of things that you'll see there that are intertwined that I want to pay attention to. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to get this NBA, NFL guy in front of me. There's nothing in the sport itself or in the exercising that I'm going to show him that he doesn't already know how to do. Mm-hmm. Right? If I see some of these guys that have been playing in Europe and overseas, they know how to play ball better than I do. They know more the nuance of basketball than I will ever know. Yeah. So there's nothing I'm doing there. I want to look at the things that you suck at. Mm-hmm. Why can't you operate your body when you're looking to your right?
Speak about that, about the injury, because you told me about one specific athlete. We can mention a name, because we're not talking crap about him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is OBJ. Yeah. This is purely off speculation. I haven't done I have no interaction with him. 2 ACL tears, right knee, both times crossing pattern, looking to his right. I've done that playing flag football, never torn my ACL. Mm-hmm. Why did he have 2 non-contacts that tore out, that took it out? Mm-hmm. It's what I've done, and I've actually done this with Joe Jack. I met at LA Fitness, and I ran this test to him on the basketball court. I was just messing around with him. When our eyes lack the ability to control, the muscles of our eyes lack the ability to control our eyesight, looking to the peripheral, there's going to be a delay in that information coming into the brain. There's going to be a delay in that processing and the execution. Yeah. For me, doesn't matter. I'm not moving that fast ever in my life that millisecond is going to make a difference for me. Mm-hmm. But someone who might move at the speed of an OBJ could say, looking to the right 2 times, I'm starting to see patterns. Why is there such a dysfunction that way? Right? Especially if it's non-contact. Mm-hmm. It's a simple misstep. He just thought the ground was closer than it was.
Mm-hmm. Like stepping off of a step. Like
coming off a step, right?
You think it's closer, then you're like,
boom, and all of a sudden your knee locks out a little bit, and that force provided. Yeah. So this is the immediate trigger that caused the tear. But everything that preceded it, why was there the misstep? He's done this route so many times in practice, playing around, and then in games at such high speeds, and he's been doing it for years. This last one was essentially in the latter years of his career. If we're going to look at the grand scope of it. Mm-hmm. That's a normal routine movement. Yeah. Why did that happen? So I'm going to say, this is the pattern I'm seeing. Let me look at eyes. And I've done this with other people where you say looking to the right or to the left causes a little slip and a little delay in the ability to fire. Mm-hmm. And
then a Lamborghini going 200 miles an hour like an OBJ with his, amazing physique.
I'm the Honda Civic.
Yeah, you're the Honda. It's not going to happen to you.
I'm a 4-cylinder going down the road. I don't move that fast.
Yeah. A split second for him, it's a car accident.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we look at some of these, the ocular vestibular function, when that's off, the body doesn't move right. And when there's a delay, the body might not move right. I usually break this down the easy way, saying if you went out with friends, you're drinking, and you had to wake up the next morning and go run a marathon, but you're hungover, you're not running. I'm sorry, you're not running. The vestibular system's all messed up. Your balance is off. You're not going to run. You go and you eat bad food that night. You wake up the next morning with a little IBS. You got to go run. You're not running.
No.
Both of those systems are more important than movement. The body knows how to save itself. It won't let you move. So this is where people need to understand the importance of all those other systems if they want the movement to happen right. If they're looking at the pain in the body, pain is communication. Pain is speaking from one brain to the next. It's telling you, Lance, something's up. I need you to pay attention.
The gas light's on, the engine light's on, the
engine
brake
light
light's
comes
on. Yeah.
And I always kind of run this analogy. I'm like, if someone came up to you, and I'm going to assume you don't speak Mandarin.
Yeah.
They're yelling at you in Mandarin. You know they're upset. You don't know what's going on, but you're going to try to make the best of the situation. Now, this is like the body. It's yelling at you, and it's doing it in the form of pain. Well, you don't fix the issue, even if you tried, it's going to do the next step, which is to increase the volume at which it's talking to you. It's going to yell a little louder, so it's going to make the pain a little worse. Next step after that, it's going to shut the area off. How many old people we know that can't do this?
Yeah.
It's the body saying, I'm not going to let you do it. You're going to tear the shoulder up. And then one thing that frustrates me is a lot of times in physical therapy, one of the first movements that they have them do is they latch up the arm and they do the frozen shoulder workouts. Walk the walk. They're forcing the arm into a position that the body's preventing. So what's going to happen then? The body shut it off for a reason.
Yeah. Break.
It tears it up even worse. It gets even worse and worse. And next thing you know, we're in a debilitating state where, it's just where you are and we can't do anything about it.
It's like we're not listening to the language. We're not listening to the noise that the body is making. And, it kind of, you ever seen Rush Hour? When he's like, do you not understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? That's what it's like for me, like when I hear people say that. Yeah,
and it's a lot of, the industry is filled with people who are very good at biomechanics. Right thing.
Wrong time.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's everywhere though. That's just not exercise science. That's health, diet. That's every single industry. So
I mean it's why
we just
Ozempic is such a thing.
Yeah, we just give a bunch of people, and I tell people this all the time. We give a bunch of people information, but don't know how to implement it or process it and put it in this proper perspective. It's like, remember when you were a child, they would give us like this like rectangular prism, and it would be like a triangle cut out, a circle cut out, and a rectangle cut out. And then as a child, you would try to put it in a triangle, it wouldn't work. In the circle, it wouldn't work. But then it worked, right? It's like we have a bunch of different pieces with the cutouts, but we're like, but let me try to put it in that one.
Yeah.
We're like, listen, if it looks like, if it's triangular prism, it's a triangle. If it's a pyramid, it's a rectangle, like, right? If it's a ball, then if it's a cube, it's a square, right?
Yeah, and then somewhere along the way, we stopped letting people go through that process and teaching them, hey, like, look at it. It makes sense if you do it like this. We started jumping to these results. These, oh, no, I can get this to happen this way. And it's a mirroring the journey that you went through, that you are currently going through.
Yeah.
Is we noticed that a long time ago, we were very holistic in the way we healed our body, right? We went to shamans, we went to the medicine man, and we went to the guy in the mountain, and all of a sudden, at some point, those guys got looked at as like the weirdos. And we started going to this doctor who says, no, but if we do this and this, we'll fix it.
Around when things became petroleum based? Was it around that time?
Okay, around the industrial age.
Yeah. So I'm going to back off that. I'm just going to touch on it and back off. All right.
So we started going that, but now what we're seeing is this renaissance period of like, no. I want to kind of go back to what we were doing before. How are we taking care of our mental health and our stressors in life that is showing me that my body's broken, that's doing this, but then I'm eating these foods that are not agreeing with my system, even though they're considered healthy foods, but I don't want to dive any deeper to that. So it becomes this whole thing where like, I'm almost happy that I'm seeing this, like these medicine men, these shamans, these weirdos in the mountains are now who everyone is going back to and getting results. And the sitting industry is trying to fight it hard. So, Peter Attia, his book is a beautiful book because he came from that industry. He says, medicine the way we know it now is great if I am dying right now.
Yeah, acute.
But it is absolutely garbage
For chronic.
for chronic issues or preventative care.
Oh my God. I love Peter Thiel, by the way. He's a fucking monster.
And it's great that I've been able to loosely work with him with some of his clients on testing and protocols.
Yeah.
That being able to work with someone so influential, so educated, and on the same path. And it's been one of the things that I've loved is that we need more people that have the cachet to sway the audience at a larger scale.
Yeah.
Tell people that, look, my doctor is 80 years old, about 100 pounds overweight. If I were to look at him, he looks like absolute dog shit. How is he telling me about my health? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's you look like you're a double cheeseburger away from a heart attack, and you're telling me I need to change my diet. No, you know what? I want to talk to the person who, and I spoke to you personally about this. I'd love to dive more into plant-based dieting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know too much about it. And I dabble a little bit, but then I'm kind of all over. I'd love to learn more, right? Yeah. I want to go to someone who lives it.
Yeah.
Who can show you, hey, this is what's actually happening. This is how I healed myself. And a lot of the mentors that I follow are people who've done the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. This is how I've healed myself from XY issue.
Mm-hmm. It's called? The book is called The Last Man in Babylon. The Last Man in Babylon or something.
Okay.
Like that. I think that's what the book. I'll find it out and post it. But it talks about only take advice from people that have the results that you want, essentially. Right?
And I will. And when it comes to the physical exercise realm, I'll give a little bit of a leeway on some of these things. Mm-hmm. Because some of the best Olympic lifting coaches I've ever met are older, fatter men. They're so good at it.
They don't give a damn no more.
But they're past that. But then, and they go and lift at 80 years old, they're out deadlifting 300 some pounds. And be like, okay.
They're like Thor in the end game.
Yeah. It's like, I got it. I know I got it. I don't need to look. But for most aspects, yes, I'm going to 100% buy into that philosophy because there is no amount of someone who's broke telling you how to make money.
Yeah.
Someone who's fat and out of shape, how to exercise. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's, in the nutrition aspect, there is the famous quote of, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food.
And that's by Hippocrates.
The father of modern medicine.
And everybody takes the Hippocratic oath, every physician.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't practice all of the things that
And there's another quote, and I'm going to loosely translate this.
Yeah.
But it's, no man or woman reserves the right to go through life without exploring the capabilities of their body.
Yes.
So loosely based to that degree, yes, push yourself to see what you're physically capable of doing. Yeah. Because in that process, you're going to find a lot about yourself. You're going to also be someone who can help others. Mm-hmm. Because, hey, someone might not be an exercise phys major or a great trainer, but maybe it's like, hey, you know what, I did these things, and this really worked for me. Try it. And these are these aspects. And a lot of the things when it comes to biomechanics, that's kind of where people stop. So, no one's going to teach me how to exercise any better. Mm-hmm. I know how to do it. I just got to either do it, or maybe I need to look at my lymphatic system, or my eyes, or my gut health.
Yeah. It's the thing where we talk about the genetic. Some people say, oh, you're just genetically gifted, and it's like, I reach my genetic capacity, right? Like I'm higher up on that spectrum of genetics, or where I'm at the base or the capacity, like up there. Like I've been training for a long ass time, right? Yeah. Where I can activate it, but it's like, but why? Like, am I going to get paid for it? Like,
I used to say a lot of the lifters, I'm like, are you competing?
Like,
but yes, like they say you're genetically gifted. No, you're just actually able to achieve your genetic potential. Yeah. Yeah. Are you going to be 6'4"? 230 pounds, bodybuilder shape year round, 40-year introvert. I'm like, no, not everyone's going to be this way. You're going to be built different, look different, but without you ever exploring your capabilities. And I think societally speaking, we got into a point where we just allow people to do what they want and say, good job. And I don't subscribe to that kind of stuff.
That's what is it? What does they call it? Participation awards. Yeah. We're not on meritocracy anymore. It's not about who wins. It's the fact that you just fought. Like, it's like, no, I want to win.
Yeah.
I don't care. I want to obliviate.
And to this day, I remember 9th grade for basketball, end of the year, all the awards I didn't get anything. I got no award. Yeah. I did not want one. I felt like garbage not getting one. So then I went to the drawing board and I started trying a little harder. I started doing new things. But that's what drives society in the world, is that this striving for more and for better and excellence. Too many people are reserved to just kind of like, feel sorry for me, love me anyways.
It's okay.
I'm like, I don't have to. No.
But I tell you what, nothing in life comes out of, like you say, if it's easily attained, it's not respected. Yeah. So why wouldn't I want to put myself through something hard or something that no other person has ever like graced the surface of, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you were able to come in and talk about this stuff, because there's just some things that needs to be said and some things that need to be questioned. It's not saying that we're against anyone or anything, but these are things that needs to be questioned and taken in consideration, because we can just keep going in the wrong direction. We can go a long way in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a hard time for everybody, right?
And every time I speak on this stuff, I never speak about the practitioner.
Yep.
I speak about the industry.
There you go. The system.
The system is built for people to learn a particular way, to then apply their knowledge a particular way.
Yep.
And unless there are people willing to revolutionize the sport or willing to be these outcasts and be thought of as like lunatics and just charlatans and scamming people left and right. And I've been called a scammer, But unless there's people willing to do these things, there is no progress in that field. And we're going to continue to go the same way. And everyone can go to their grandparents' medicine cabinet and you see it full. And their grandparents never getting any better, never making any progress, and they're almost waiting it out.
Yeah, but they will call you a grifter, but won't call that system a grifting system.
Yeah,
right.
And a lot of the medical industry is dictated by the insurance companies. And of course, you see the powers that be, the powers that want to stay things the way they are because they maintain the control.
Yeah, imagine trying to tell a drug dealer, hey, you can't make no more money on this block. Yeah. Oh, no, but I'm a multi-trillion-dollar industry. You can't, what?
Yeah, you're not going to disrupt my thing.
Did you ever exist?
Yeah. So
did you have a social security?
Yeah. So what they will do is and a lot of times when it comes to these the powerhouses that play, is they will try to discredit you.
Of course.
From this perspective of authority. Well, do you have a doctorate? Do you have a PhD to lecture anybody about this? Mm-hmm. Sometimes all you need is life experience. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to know, hey, this is the path I went on, and when I did this, this, and this, all of a sudden this helped out, and then I helped somebody else do it. And now I have all this anecdotal evidence that shows it. Yeah. So when I talk to some athletes and they don't want to buy in, I show them the eye stuff, and they're like, oh, okay, and then I'll work on some things. Yeah. And then I have their doctors or their trainers say I'm full of it. And I'm like, I can't keep replicating something and it be nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't agree with it, whatever, but it can't be nothing.
Science lags. Science lags behind. Science is a behind the eight ball. It's not ahead. It's
so one of the things that I always hear about is it's called magic until science figures out how it works. And I've told you, I've had guys on the table, and they get off the table and said, I just did voodoo. And
black magic.
Yeah.
Black magic.
One called his mom.
Yeah.
And it's funny to hear.
Probably cried or some shit.
They get a little freaked out about it sometimes. Or some of them get really mad because they're giant men. They're 6'5", almost 400 pounds. Their job is to be a lineman, not get turned. And you see some of the people I've seen, 5'7", 180 pounds, 175 pound people, just turn them.
Put them down.
Because they were looking to the right and they go, no, try it again. And they get mad. And then they say, this is just nonsense or it's voodoo. And they say all these things because it can't be explained yet.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it. It works. I'm going to continue to do it. And if I find something new and I can refine it even more, I continue down that path. Mm-hmm. But I think the industry is really set on not losing its grip.
Of course. Like, who's going to come to you and be like, hey, listen, we have, the society holds us to this regard. We're almost godlike, right? With these godlike complexes. And we're meant to make you healthy. We're the symbol of health. Mm-hmm. So come to us for everything. But I only know a little bit about food and nutrition.
Yeah.
But you should still come to me for everything. Yeah. But they'll never mention that. They'll never mention their shortcomings and say, hey, listen, we're just not good at that. We're just reactive medicine. We're not proactive. They will
outsource anything.
That's crazy. That's wild.
A lot of it comes. So the biggest one that I deal with a lot is with physical therapy clients, potential physical therapy clients. Mm-hmm. And we talk about them and we find out their pain is chronic by nature. Anybody who's in my realm And even physical therapy, well, chronic pain is not fixed through physical therapy. It's a biomechanic approach.
Yeah.
Acute injury, post-surgery, that's where physical therapy works. So then we go, hey, you know what? I want to do a DEXA scan. I want to find out, do you have more muscle in one leg versus the other? Are you imbalanced that way that you're favoring a side and that's why it's hurting? Insurance will be like, no, that's fringe medicine. That's not going to prove anything. And I'm like, well, you know what? I've seen some athletes with a 3-pound difference between their legs. Neurologically speaking, that should not happen.
That should not happen.
Right?
Something's going on in the body where something's compensating for something else.
And then what happens is all the time we tell them is like, oh, this leg has more muscle, but this is the one that hurts. And I'm like, wonder why? It's taken on the load. So why did our body go this route? So now maybe I can fix what's going on, but you'll have the insurance company and everyone is so ready to use their insurance to say, no, well, I have insurance. Why would I pay out of pocket? Couple factors go into that.
Insurance don't cover that. Yeah.
Insurance doesn't cover it. If they do cover it, they're going to tell me exactly what protocols I'm allowed to use, or they won't pay me. Yeah. So it becomes very hard. So you're seeing a lot of good physical therapists stop taking insurance. Yeah. And that's usually my measure.
Because they get in the way.
Problem, if they pay me cash, and I'll work on things the way that I feel is necessary.
You're dealing with egos at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, science is almost, it's funny because I started sunbathing. And with sickle cell, the majority of my issues went away. Like they just went away.
Imagine that.
And, a few years after that, I saw some study by something, and they were like, well, scientists found out that walking barefoot, naked in the sun makes you healthier. I'm like, what? So those Africans in those tribes that you guys were laughing at before.
We call them uncivilized.
Uncivilized, right? So what's really civilized and uncivilized at this point?
Yeah.
Right?
And it is really amazing that a lot of the directive that you get is counterintuitive. And then just for years later to be like, oh, you know what? We found out this. So we go through this whole thing about sunscreen.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on
that. So you talk about the sunbathing.
Don't get me started on that.
So up until the invention of sunscreen, like, did people just start dying left and right of melanoma and skin cancer and all these things? Were we just like, no, like we needed this intervention to save humanity?
There was an ozone tear or something in the 90s. You remember that? What happened to that? What happened to the ozone tear?
What happened to the hole? Did we patch it?
Yeah. What?
Was one of the Elon's rockets that went up there and fixed it? Because now we don't talk about it anymore.
Was it like the Truman Show and the thing?
Yeah. Also, we'll take the boat out there and we'll just hit that wall.
Just take the boat, right?
So we go out there and I'm like, evolutionarily speaking, we've been in the sun. Why is it now that the sun is bad? Like the reason that there's different skin colors and variants is because of how north or south we became and close to the poles.
The
how much sunlight we had access to.
The pheomelanin, eumelanin.
Yeah. And we look at these things, we're like, okay, well, now they're trying to say it's like, oh, go check on your conspiracy theorist because apparently he's been right. And we start talking about these things. We're like, go out in the sun. Put your bare feet on the ground. We're insulated from birth.
Yeah.
I'm tell you, one of the neighborhoods I lived in was a fairly clean neighborhood. So I would walk in my neighborhood, I'd walk my dog without my shoes.
Yep.
Just touch the earth.
Yeah.
How come we always feel better when we go to some tropical resort and we get on vacation? And we come back, we're like, oh my God, it feels so good. Yeah. And then we come back to work and we start to feel like shit again. Yeah. But we got away from the sunlight. We got away from nature, the water,
Can I tell you my take on that? So most medications are photosensitive or they create photoallergens. Yeah. So if you're on, let's say penicillin or ibuprofen or let's say Advil or Aleve, you'll burn in the sun. It'll give you hives. It says on the back, don't go into the sun. So a lot of people are medicated. So that's why. That's why they're telling you that about the sun, because once again, you cannot tell a drug dealer to get off a block that they've dominated forever and they've made trillions of dollars and they're the biggest industry almost in the world. Yeah. You can't tell them to stop pushing their stuff. So what they're going to say, oh, that thing God created, that's the bad thing.
You know what's funny too is I've seen people with certain autoimmune disorders. Let's say lupus. They're told, hey, you need to be careful with the sunlight. But then what medication, what vitamin supplement do they give them?
Vitamin D.
And they give them huge amounts.
20,000 IUs.
So here's where I did my dive in when it comes to the supplementation with vitamin D.
Yeah.
At one point, for I think about 8 months, I was taking 50,000 daily. Just take it.
50,000 IU international units?
Yeah.
Wow.
And everyone says this, and I go, look, as far as I've read, there's only one negative side effect that's been recorded.
Elevated cholesterol or something like that. Or?
He had kidney stones.
Oh, okay.
But his level was a 250, which is a high number. I was taking 50,000 for about 8 months, and my number only hit 97, which is still under the threshold. For 8 months, I took it. I'm like, so you can't, like, you don't have to make people feel scared about this. But then all of a sudden they go, the best source to get vitamin D would be the sunlight. Now we're going to tell you with an autoimmune disorder, don't do the sunlight, but take the vitamin D IU. It doesn't correlate. But then, I get where some of that might come in, where they say, oh, well, you're also on this medication and make you photosensitive.
Can't do it.
Well, how about you get off that medication, get that vitamin D?
The money doesn't get made. So it all circles back to if you're not sick, the industry doesn't, nothing works. You got to have sick people.
To be sick.
People have to be sick for money to get made, right? Like low testosterone levels. The first thing they test for is vitamin D level. And I'm like, come on, guys.
But there's a reason why people in the industry on the inside will kind of call it hormone D3 versus vitamin D3.
Yeah, because it controls genes.
It controls gene expression. It regulates the hormone level production. This is why I'm such a big proponent about take a lot. You're probably never going to take too much that you make your body hurt. And there's only been one study that I've seen that showed a negative side effect, and it was a kidney stone. So if we're looking at the grand scheme of things, it's a kidney stone. Like, it's not pleasant, not good, but that's the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, rectal bleeding from X medication might be a little worse.
Or just get off the pills and go into the sun for a few minutes, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna get a lady on. Her name's Dr. Alexis, forget her last name. But she goes into the mitochondria function and ATP production and red light, infrared light, blue light, when to block it out. I'm gonna have her on. She's
Light therapy is a very interesting topic.
Yes, heliotherapy. That's what Niels Finson. He actually cured lupus in 1905. He has a Nobel Prize for it.
Well, they use blue light to cure jaundice in babies.
Really?
So babies born with jaundice will go into blue light therapy when they're born.
Wow, didn't know that.
But then we say weird things about, infrared, it doesn't really show and prove anything. And I'm like, light therapy's been around for a long time.
Long time.
And all the different color spectrums vibrate at a particular frequency. And if we get into the holistic health, everything is frequency. You got to be doing
vibration.
Something, right?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Absolutely. Is there any other topic you want to cover before we head out here? Because this has been a great conversation. I can, with you, bro, every time we talk, we go for hours.
Yeah.
My girl calls me. She's like, Lance, where are you at?
Any other topic, if it doesn't feel right, stop doing it. I don't care who tells you what's going on.
Okay.
It's been a big proponent when people say, oh, I want to train like this, or I want to do this, I want to do that. Stop being so idealistic and become more conceptual.
Yeah. Stop being a zealot.
Stop being a zealot, right?
Yeah.
It's CrossFitters, zealots. Powerlifters can be zealots. Bodybuilders can be zealots. I mean, we can do this with anything. We got the biggest zealot group I'm seeing out there right now is the carnivore diet people. Look, I'm not for or against any particular diet, but man, you guys need to relax a little bit. It's take the concept, and almost every dietary concept hits the same note. Eat real food. Eat real food. When we lift, make sure it makes sense. There's a lot of athletes I know trying to work out like bodybuilders. Stop doing it. Your sessions don't need to be longer. They need to be more effective. More isn't better. Better is better.
Better is better. Yeah.
So and anything else I'd like to say, if you guys are experiencing chronic pain or anything, hit me up. I've been doing this a while. I can figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I'll find someone who can. I think that's where a lot of people are missing out on stuff is they don't know how to do it, so they kind of leave you there. Yeah. Or they force you to think that they know how to do it.
Yeah. Because for some reason they think that they lose credibility or merit because they don't know a small aspect. It's like, yo, dude, everyone's they don't know everything in every direction. Like, I prefer to go to a specialist than a general practitioner.
It's one of the things where it comes down to like, look, if I know that there's some psychological stuff going on, I don't touch it. Yeah. I'm not equipped for that. And most of the time we're not close enough for me to try to attempt it. I know people that are very good at it. Yeah. I will refer, if you don't even like them, find your own person. Yeah.
And I would trust someone like you 1,000 times more than I would trust someone who says, no, I know it all. Really? Mm-hmm. Really? Your brain you have that much capacity. So you're God, basically. You're just omnipresent.
So then you know what? When you ask if there's anything else I'd like to harp on, stop calling yourselves an expert, guys. Like, man, there has not been one person that I've seen that said they are an expert on anything that through enough talking, you can find out that they're full of it. That they want to have that God complex. They want to have they're the be all end all. There's trainers like that. There's doctors like that. There's, the gurus out there. I'm just someone who started latching onto something, learning some more stuff, trying to really help people. I have a lot to learn.
And the more you learn, the more you're like, dang, there's a lot more. Wow.
The more you learn, the more you know you don't know anything in the grand scheme of it. So yeah, it's be wary of the experts. I'd be very cautious about that.
That'd be it. Definitely. So Cody, listen, thank you for coming. I want you to plug yourself one more time. Well, you didn't plug yourself in the beginning. Let's plug yourself now.
Cody Perez. I'm the founder of Revolution Performance. We work on holistic wellness, covering as many aspects as we can, sports performance, and getting rid of that chronic pain. So shoot me a DM, email. I have it all on the site, on the Instagram profile. If I can't fix it, I'll find someone who can for you.
And what is the Instagram?
It is Revolution Performance. So Revolution_Performance. That's cool. And look, the journey's there. Let's take it.
Well, that wraps it up. This is another episode of Kaptainplantit Podcast. Thanks for being with us.